G'day you good motherfuckers. Listen, I can't believe I have to make this video again. I've tried several times to comment on this, but apparently I was far too polite, tactful, and just plain old nice Butterfield. For the last time, if you believe that there is a pay gap, a gender wage gap between men and women just because of gender, just because they've got a vagina or a penis, then you are a fucking idiot. How anyone can still believe that with the enormous amount of information, whether it's videos, podcasts, or just fucking, I don't know, memes and shit on the internet that you can do your own research, you can look at these studies. How can anyone still think that? I know it's pushed by the mainstream media, but what are you, a fucking idiot? I guess that's who's to blame. The mainstream media. They champion this idea that men and women are paid differently just because of their sex. They come up with these ideas and they push them amongst all the average people, the people sitting at home and going, oh, well, that's disgusting. I can't believe men and women are paid differently just because they're women. Women are hard done by. No! It's fucking wrong. Fucking wrong. This video is going to go into depth about some of the fucking ridiculousness of the mainstream media and what the shit they're pushing upon the people. But just do me a favor. After you press like and then press subscribe if you haven't already, send it to someone who still believes this shit. Try and change someone's fucking mind. The quicker that we cut this shit out of our lives and we allow young people particularly to not worry about this shit and just move on and try and make something of themselves, the better. For the record, the gender wage gap does not exist. The reason men and women are not paid differently is because it is illegal. It is illegal to discriminate upon someone because they are of some particular sex, sexual preference, or ethnicity. And if you're a business owner and you could get away with that, wouldn't you just pay women to do the exact same job as men but for less money? Wouldn't that make sense financially? The figures that people refer to with the wage gap come from the culmination of the total earnings from men and the total earnings from women. Women on average do things differently to men. All right? Women pick different jobs. Men pick different jobs. Women work different hours. Men work more hours on average. Men are more likely to do certain things. Men are more likely to work harder on average and in certain ways. Women are having babies. Men are taking less holidays. This is an average, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what creates the difference. Not because of someone's penis or vagina. But no matter how many times this is explained to people, we still get giant fuckwits like the people on Sunrise.
A new report has found the gender pay gap is shrinking, but men still take home over $25,000 a year more than women. Kath, what more can be done to close this gap, do you think?
Oh, look, I'll have a stab in the dark for companies and try and come up with an idea. What about pay up?
Pay up? Fuck me dead. This is Kath Weber. Now, Kath is the Women in Media National Co-Convener, whatever the fuck that means. Anyway, she just hates men, I guess. That was a joke. She's just pushing for women's rights in modern society, of which they have all of them. But anyway, we'll move on from that. Kath says that companies should pay up. Absolutely. If they're paying men more than they're paying women in the exact same job, they should pay up for an hourly rate if they're paying more. Why? Not because it's a nice thing to do, because it's fucking illegal.
Go and have a look. You can look at your own industry, and when you actually do a deep dive on it, it is frightening. It starts from graduate level. So if you had twins, a boy and a girl, they went to the same school, the same university, got the same degree, it starts then that the boy will most likely get more money. So
most likely get more money? You haven't explained why. Explain why. Go into detail. Don't just throw these statements out there. You're not backing up any of your statements with evidence.
So if I don't know, a profession like childcare, you get $20 an hour if you get a Cert 3 and you're a qualified childcare worker. If you get a Cert 3 in boiler making, which is mostly male dominated, you get $40 an hour. So I think here's the data. We've got the facts. It's time to pay up.
How are you fucking on television? Are you serious? Time to pay up? How, in what universe would childcare workers earn as much as Boilermakers? For those of you playing at home who have never left your house, a Boilermaker is a welder, all right? What fucking world would they get paid less than childcare workers? Are you serious? Should a barrister and fucking lunch lady Doris get paid the same, you muppet? Anyway, let's check Kathy's fucking facts here. A childcare worker doesn't get paid on average $20 an hour. It's $21.91. Do your research, love. And in fact, the Boilermaker doesn't make $40 an hour. On average, they make $28.05. Good research to me. right? So there is a difference of $6 there. Now, why is there a difference of $6 there? Well, there might be for several fucking reasons. Number one, welding fucking metal to other bits of metal is dangerous, so there's a danger pay. You have to go to TAFE, and that costs more money to do a boiler making course than it does to do a childcare course. Don't get me wrong, childcare workers are obviously extremely important. They take care of the youth, they bring them up, they make sure they're alive and okay while their parents go to do boiler making work. At the end of the day, the reason they get paid more is because people are willing to pay more money to them to boiler make thing. If you want childcare workers to get paid more money, then for fucking little Johnny to go to childcare, you got to pay his 3 carers, fucking Susie, fucking Stacey, and fucking Amanda. You got to pay them $40 an hour. So at the end of the day, it's going to cost you $120 fucking dollars, or more than that probably, because they got to get a profit on top of that. It's going to cost you $200 a day. Are you willing to pay $200 a day so little Johnny can go and play with blocks? Fucking no. Fuck little Johnny. Anyway, I think the point where we can just put this all to bed, and a little checkmate to young Kath over there, little Kath Webber on the telly and stuff, wouldn't male childcare workers get paid the exact same? So if you want to make as much as a boiler maker and you're a childcare worker, be a fucking boiler maker.
It's time for action. Find the money, pay up, let's go.
Ron, 6 out of 10 Aussies still work in an in an industry dominated by one gender.
Yeah.
You know, as Kaz mentioned, those traditional occupations for women are driving force behind this.
60% of industries have the one gender as the dominant one, and that's because men and women make different choices. Men, on average, want to work with things, and women want to work with people. It's biological. But you may say that the reason that men and women choose different jobs, or the different industries, or the same industries, is because of the constructs of society, right? Incorrect. In Scandinavian countries, the push for gender equality in industries, the 50-50 push for men and women, is somewhat totalitarian, and it failed. In most of those fields like engineering or mathematics, the push to have more women in there failed, and it backfired, and then more women wanted to go back into nursing. And if you're a woman and you're watching this and say, no, I want to work with things, and that's great, you're an outlier, good on you, good, that's great. But on average, this is their choices that they're going to make. Statistically speaking, if you had a baby, a man baby, and a lady baby, man baby, lady baby, and you had to put bets on what they would do for a job, regardless of the context of their upbringing, it's likely that baby who is a man baby would go and do things with things. And the lady would do things with people. It's just biology. I'm not saying that women can't do stuff that men can do. Look at the CEO of YouTube, the biggest video platforming service in the entire world. She is a woman. So if she can do it, anyone can do it. Take the former Westpac CEO, Gail Kelly, who probably earned like $400 billion. She had this to say.
Hi Gail, I'm Mark, and I'm here with my Westpac colleagues. Currently there is a 27% pay difference between males and females in the finance sector. How is Westpac planning to address this issue?
Gotcha.
Well, I don't think so, actually. I mean, we pay equally. So we wouldn't be accredited as we just have been in terms of the Equal Opportunity EOW Act if we didn't actually have, because it's very rigorous, tested and assessed, if we didn't have pay equity. So we pay the same.
That is,
we don't do things well.
Is it not the case in Westpac the men have the better paid jobs by some sort of factor of 27% or more?
Well, what we're talking about, though, is same pay for same job. That's what we're talking about here.
There's your answer. We pay the same, fuckhead. But no, Sunrise has all the answers.
Well, shouldn't childcare workers get paid more than boiler makers?
Over the last 10 years, we've been talking about
values?
gender pay gaps forever, and I was reading some international studies showing that, in fact, over the last 10 years, there's been almost no reduction in the gender pay gap at all, and economists are having trouble putting their finger on it.
Economists are having problems putting a finger on it, my fucking ass. In fact, this is what The Economist has to say.
Women who work full-time still earn 15% less than men. But that's not because they're paid less for the same jobs. It's because they're in different jobs.
Oh, oopsie daisy, now a lady's saying it. Oh, she's not a part of the patriarchy. Ha ha ha, you're fucked. You're fucked, mate. Your argument's fucked.
Over 80% of teachers, nurses, secretaries and health workers are female. And these jobs tend to be lower paid. Primary school teachers in the West earn nearly 20% less than the average graduate job. Nurses earn less than police officers. Cleaners less than caretakers.
So it's choices that have created this wage gap, not gender. Oh my God, who would have fucking thought?
Women are as ambitious as men. They earn the majority of university degrees. In America, they now ask for promotions as often as men. But it's the price women pay for motherhood that holds them back.
Which is not a good thing. Just because women have babies shouldn't mean that they miss out on a career. But I guess you've got to weigh up, what do you want? Do you want to have a baby or do you want to continue this career? And a lot of women have to make that choice. It's up to you. It's a personal decision. That's what creates the wage gap. That's why there is a difference between men's total earnings and women's. Choices. Now, let's fuck Sunrise off for a moment and head over to some real news providers who won't be biased, who certainly won't pick sides, and definitely doesn't have an agenda. The ABC.
3:43. All us bitches should leave work at 3:43. 'Cause time is money and money is time. And since I'm being paid for 84% of mine, then we're fucking off and going home at 3:43.
Hey, where are you going? Don't you know, on a national average, women are only being paid until 3:43.
Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, this video has given me so many diseases. I'm afraid this YouTube career must cease immediately. I need to focus on my own health. I love how taxpayer-funded money goes into these awful shows that the ABC produces. Fuck you.
3:43. It's got a bit to do with the patriarchy.
I don't want to nitpick here, but those two chicks just punched two dudes in the head. I'd love to see if the roles were reversed, if that would make it past the ABC board.
It's a real shit situation that's all across the nation. So let's all tap out at 3:43.
Can I just address really quickly? A lot of people have said that I'm a men's rights activist. I'm not fucking anything. I'm definitely not a men's rights activist. I'm not anyone's activist. I just call bullshit where I call bullshit, all right?
According to the pay gap in your industry, surgeons, you got a pay gap of 43%. So you go home for lunch at 12:34. Oh, yeah. Barristers, your pay gap is 72%. So that pretty much means you take a male barrister's income and then halve it. Then halve it again.
Wow, that's depressing.
And stay-at-home mums? Just kidding. You work for free.
But being a stay-at-home mum is a choice. Who's going to pay you to be a stay-at-home mum?
No, stop. It is way more complicated than that. It's going to take years of restructuring how we see women in the workforce and women's roles at home.
You're a financial advisor, right?
How do you know that?
Girl, guess what? Your pay gap is 53%. So that means you get to go home and...
I call a little bit of bullshit here because the average financial advisor makes $70K a year, right? And half of that is $35,000 a year. If you're a woman and you're making $35,000 a year as a middle-aged financial advisor, then you are a shit financial advisor. It is your fault. It is not my fault. It is your fault. And maybe the ABC's fault, but it's definitely your fucking fault. Perhaps the ABC could do something about the wage gap instead of just whinging about it. What they could do is stop using their shitty arts degrees to create content on the TV and online that everybody fucking hates. All you have to do is look at the like and dislike ratios. Everybody fucking hates it. Why don't you go out and get a worthy degree, something that might actually make you a bit of money and might change that wage gap and move it up a little bit. or you couldn't and maybe just whinge and bitch and moan about it. I understand that I'm whinging and bitching and moan about it, but fuck it. People enjoy it when I do that. And if you don't like it, suck a dick. Actually, Instead of going back to uni, why don't you just become a boilermaker and shut the fuck up? I will play this video fairly. There are some positions, some jobs that are paid differently based on gender. They are in most circumstances sport. In most sports, women are paid less than men, okay? Now, why is that? Is it because more people go to men's games than women's games? Yes. The vast majority of sports, men are worth more than the women. Purely on an advertising scale. That's not my fault. That's not men's fault. That's the fault of women, men, and the population combined. Alright? It's nobody's fault in particular, but not in every sport. Take the UFC, for example. They have a women's division. They have several women's divisions, right? In different weight classes. And they headline cards all the time. People love it because they don't whinge and bitch and moan about being women and saying, oh, we don't get enough money. No, they go out there, they beat the fuck out of each other, and if they earn the money, then they get it. And that's the best way to advance on any of this type of stuff. If you think you are worth more, then find a way to get paid more.
All right, well, the Matildas Soccer World Cup win against Brazil pushed women's sport into the headlines, but it's definitely not reflected in their earnings. Each Matilda was paid just $500 in match fees. Compare that to the $7,500 their male counterparts would have received. Now, if they make it to the final, the girls will get $5,500 each. The blokes will get $69,000 each.
Each. Because people give a shit about the men's World Cup. All right? People give a shit about the women's World Cup too. But less people, less advertisers, therefore less money. You don't have to be a fucking genius to work that out. Let's have a look at the numbers from the Women's World Cup in comparison to the Men's World Cup from that year. The men's stadium, the capacity crowd was 53,000 and the women's 10,000. And when you look at highlights from that game, the stadium's not even packed. There's like thousands of seats left. So instead of freaking out, go to the fucking game.
How can anyone justify this, Ita?
They can't.
No.
I mean, the gender... I beg your pardon?
I can justify it.
How?
Why?
Well, I tell you what, stars don't get paid more money because, a sport doesn't become interesting because the stars are paid more money. Stars get paid more money because the sport is interesting. Let me ask you this. How many of you guys on the panel know who our Australian Matildas are playing in the quarterfinals?
Don't.
No, because you don't care about it. Now, if you cared about it...
I do if they win.
No, but that's the thing.
They beat Brazil.
Do you know what? All of you can go and watch W League games in the women's competition here, but you don't.
Thank fuck for Dicko. Who would have thought he would have come from Australian Idol, made so much sense around all those young ladies who just seem to be fucking carrying on like absolute pork chops. You can see it in their faces. They're just like, oh, you disagreed. How dare you?
Do you know what? There is not one team in the Women's World Cup that could beat a junior male side in the A-League.
So what?
So they're not as good.
Well, they're playing women.
What?
Maybe that's them.
But why? But to me, it comes down to simply a matter of inequity.
If you sell more tickets, you get paid more. You need to be better as well. The Matildas, that year, the Australian women's representative soccer team got beaten 7-1. 7 points to 1. 7 goals to 1 by an under-15s men's side. There is your answer. This group of ladies aren't the only ones to have this thought process. Hillary Clinton has the same.
We cheered when they won the World Cup, and we cheered when they won the Olympic gold medal. And we noticed that our men's team hasn't yet done that. Yet somehow, the men are making hundreds of thousands of dollars more than the women. Now, you know the phrase, equal pay for equal work. Well, in America, we believe in equal pay for equal play, too.
Thank fuck she didn't win. It would be a very interesting world if she did. It's the same in Australia. The women's AFL, a great idea, a great initiative pushed by the AFL itself. The women's grand final had 7,000 people there. The men's had 100,000. The women's game had 50% less supporters than the year before. So instead of whinging about women getting paid as much as men in the same sport, why don't you turn up to the fucking games? Similar things are happening to men as well. Men don't get paid as much as women in modelling and porn.
From the catwalk To the covers of international magazines, we know their faces and their first names, Giselle, Miranda, and Kate. They are the world's most famous supermodels with the biggest bank accounts. According to Forbes, top earner Brazilian beauty Giselle Bündchen raked in a whopping $42 million last year, while Aussie Miranda Kerr was behind her with $7 million. So how do the paychecks of their male counterparts compare?
On average, male models make around $200,000 to $500,000 a year.
And no one gives a fuck. Let's move on. This shit idea about the gender wage gap that men hate women is getting pushed into so many young people's minds and psyches, and it's rife throughout older communities as well, and everyone in between. I wonder what would happen if kids were asked this question. And in fact, Jimmy Kimmel actually went out to the streets and asked this question. And I think this video actually illustrates quite nicely the actual opinion of people if they weren't controlled by what they should and shouldn't say.
So we went out on the street, we asked kids to explain why they think women get paid less than men.
Why do you think women get paid less than men for the same jobs?
Girls don't work as hard as the boys.
What are they doing instead of working hard?
Doing other stuff.
Listen to the crowd there, they're freaking out, but it's true on average. On average. I'm not talking about you, lady, who's watching this freaking out, okay? I'm not talking about you, but on average, men work more hours, more paid hours. They just do, okay? It's not putting shit on chicks. All right? I'm not putting shit on chicks. I'm not. This is just what happens. This is reality, okay? I'm not saying that you work less hard than me, all right? Don't get me wrong. I fucking grind, mate. I fucking grind, all right? But my point is, on average, we're talking about averages here. People freak out like I'm putting shit on them directly. Averages.
Why do you think that women make less money than men?
I think because they're very underrated, because they can do more, but people expect them to do less.
What kind of more can they do?
Well,
sounds like this kid has got a soy boy of the dad.
A lot of people underestimate them, and they could do so much more. There's jobs that men can't do that women can.
Like what?
And this is a good point from this young kid. People do underestimate women. Women can do anything that a man can do. I hope his example is excellent. Let's find out what his example is.
They can be an actress if they want.
And a man can't be an actress.
He's technically right. Well done, champ.
Men and women should have equal rights.
How do you think we're gonna make that happen?
Maybe, let's see, if we have like a good group of people to help around the world, or maybe a good president who could help.
And who would be a good president to help with that?
Probably Donald Trump. Because I think he thinks of women and men the same and equal.
That whole crowd just imploded within their own minds. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave this video here. I think I've said my side of the story. I think I've gotten my point across. The wage gap doesn't exist. And if you still believe it to be true, if you still listen to the news on a nightly basis, if you still listen to 60 Minutes and freak out, or A Current Affair, or any of those shows on TV that tell you that men are paid more than women because of penises and vaginas, then I'm afraid you're a lost cause, and I don't give a fuck about what you think, okay? And no one else should either, because obviously you refute facts. Facts are not more important than feelings, okay? They're just not. And if you are a woman and you think that you are in a position where you can't succeed, then that is a terrible mindset. You need to be able to just fucking go for it, all right? If you're a young woman out there and you see yourself and you watch these videos like mine, or perhaps you're on the complete other side and you're watching these videos that are saying men are out there to get you, you're never going to do this, you're never going to do that, you can't do that, well, guess what? You won't be able to do it. But there's so many examples of young women succeeding in the world, so go out and fucking do it. Don't worry about how much you're not going to get paid because you're a woman, because it's bullshit. You know what you're worth, go out and find it. Ladies and gentlemen, be a good motherfucker. Peace in the Middle East. Mot pak een. Don't know what that fucker means, but it'll do this week, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. New video on Wednesday as well. So, fuck, I've spoken for way too long. Bye.